You don't feel heavy because life is unfair. You feel heavy because you're still carrying things your next level cannot afford to hold. You say you want higher consciousness, mental clarity, emotional freedom, financial growth, spiritual awakening, but you're still protecting habits, patterns, and identities that belong to an older version of you. And that tension you feel lately, that quiet frustration, that sense that something is shifting but not fully clicking yet, that's not confusion, that's elevation trying to happen, while your attachments refuse to loosen their grip. Right now, there are specific things lowering your frequency every single day. Invisible weights, comfortable distractions, emotional addictions disguised as personality traits. And until you release them, you will keep feeling almost aligned, almost confident, almost at peace. Today, you're going to see what must go. Not surface-level advice, not recycled motivation, real internal upgrades. Because raising your vibration isn't about crystals, quotes, or pretending to be positive. It's about subtraction. And what you're about to realize may challenge the identity you've been protecting. Stay with me. The last one especially changes everything. You must give up the addiction to being understood by everyone. At some point in your growth, you started seeing differently. Conversations that once excited you now feel repetitive. Situations that once triggered you now feel predictable. You're becoming more self-aware, more intentional, more focused on peace. But here's the uncomfortable part. The more you evolve, the fewer people will relate to you the way they used to. And instead of accepting that, you try to explain yourself. You over-explain your boundaries. You justify your ambition. You defend your silence. You send long messages clarifying your intentions. You rehearse arguments in your head, just in case someone misunderstands you. And every time you do that, something subtle happens, your energy drops. Because needing to be understood by everyone is still a form of validation seeking. It feels mature. It feels responsible. But underneath it is fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of isolation. Fear of being labeled different. And the moment you let fear guide your communication, your frequency lowers. Here's what most people don't tell you about personal growth. Expansion is isolating before it becomes inspiring. When you upgrade your mindset, not everyone upgrades with you. When you develop emotional intelligence, emotional immaturity becomes loud. When you prioritize discipline, comfort culture calls you extreme. And if you keep trying to drag everyone into your new awareness, you'll exhaust yourself. High-level energy doesn't argue. It doesn't chase agreement. It doesn't beg for approval. It stands in clarity, and clarity is quiet. The real shift happens when you become comfortable being misunderstood by people who are committed to seeing the old version of you. That's when your power stabilizes. That's when you stop shrinking your dreams to make others comfortable. That's when you stop leaking energy through explanation. But letting go of that need creates a different challenge, because when you stop seeking validation, something else rises to the surface, and most people aren't ready for it. You must give up emotional addiction to drama. This one hides well. It doesn't look like addiction. It looks like passion. It looks like personality. It looks like I just care deeply. But if your nervous system is constantly stimulated by conflict, tension, gossip, or overthinking, your baseline frequency stays low. There was a time when chaos felt normal, when late-night arguments felt meaningful, when intense relationships felt magnetic, when replaying conversations in your head felt productive. But it wasn't growth. It was stimulation. The human brain gets attached to intensity, and when you've been living in emotional turbulence for years, peace can feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. You might say you want calm, but when things get quiet, you start creating scenarios in your mind. You check your phone. You look for problems. You anticipate conflict that hasn't happened. That's not intuition. That's conditioning. High vibration requires emotional regulation. It requires you to pause before reacting, to observe before responding, to ask yourself, is this worth my energy? And here's the difficult part. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. Not every message deserves a reply. Not every comment deserves your attention. Not every misunderstanding deserves correction. When you stop reacting instantly, something powerful happens. Your awareness increases. Your perception sharpens. You begin to see patterns instead of getting trapped inside them. You start noticing who thrives on chaos and who respects calm. And here's the twist. The less you react, the more control you gain over your internal state. But control over your emotions exposes another layer you might not expect, because once the drama fades, you're left alone with yourself. And that's where the real work begins. You must give up the identity built around your past. Transformation sounds exciting until it requires releasing the story you've been telling about yourself. I've always been this way. That's just my personality. People never treat me right. I'm not good at consistency. These statements feel harmless. They feel honest, but they are anchors. When you define yourself by your past experiences, you limit your future behavior. You unconsciously protect the version of you that struggled. You defend the habits that once kept you safe. And then you wonder why your growth feels slow. Higher consciousness demands a new self-concept, not denial of the past, not pretending nothing happened, but refusing to let old chapters dictate current identity. If you keep introducing yourself through your wounds, you will keep recreating environments that validate those wounds. If you keep saying you're bad at discipline, your brain will look for evidence to support it. If you keep claiming you're always unlucky, you will ignore opportunities that contradict that belief. Identity shapes behavior more than motivation ever will. The moment you decide deeply that you are disciplined, your actions begin to align. The moment you decide you are emotionally stable, your reactions begin to shift. The moment you decide you are capable of abundance, your decisions change. But here's the part most people avoid. Choosing a new identity means disappointing the version of you that found comfort in the old one. And that internal resistance can feel intense. Because if you're no longer the victim, then you're responsible. And responsibility is heavy until it becomes empowering. But there's something even heavier than an outdated identity, and it's hiding inside your daily routine. You must give up comfort disguised as self-care. There is real self-care, rest, recovery, reflection. But then there's avoidance dressed up as healing, endless scrolling called relaxing, procrastination labeled waiting for the right energy, avoiding difficult conversations under the banner of protecting my peace. Peace is not avoidance. Growth requires friction. It requires uncomfortable conversations. It requires waking up when you don't feel like it. It requires consistency when motivation fades. If your version of self-care never challenges you, it's not elevating you. It's keeping you stagnant. Low vibration loves convenience. It loves instant gratification. It loves short-term pleasure over long-term expansion. And the more you feed that cycle, the harder discipline becomes. But here's the powerful realization. Discipline is not punishment. It's alignment. When you commit to habits that build strength, physical strength, mental resilience, financial literacy, emotional intelligence, your frequency naturally rises. Not because you're forcing positivity, but because you're becoming reliable to yourself. Confidence doesn't come from affirmations. It comes from evidence. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, your self-trust increases. Every time you choose growth over comfort, your self-respect expands. And when self-trust and self-respect align, your energy shifts in a way people can feel without you saying a word. But even discipline won't elevate you fully if you're still holding on to one final thing. And this one silently controls more of your life than you realize. You must give up the fear of outgrowing people. This is the quiet weight most ambitious, self-aware individuals carry. You sense you're changing. Your goals are expanding. Your standards are rising. Your conversations are becoming more intentional. And somewhere inside there's guilt. Guilt that you're becoming too much. Guilt that you're drifting. Guilt that your growth might create distance. So you slow down. You minimize your ambition. You downplay your wins. You stay small to maintain familiarity. But here's the truth. Growth naturally creates separation before it creates alignment. When you raise your vibration, you attract different conversations, different opportunities, different environments. And if you resist that shift out of fear, you sabotage your own expansion. Outgrowing people doesn't mean disrespecting them. It means honoring your direction. Not everyone is meant to walk every chapter with you. Some were there to teach you resilience. Some were there to teach you boundaries. Some were there to show you what you no longer tolerate. And when you accept that, your energy stabilizes at a higher level because you're no longer negotiating your future to preserve your past. You're no longer shrinking to maintain comfort. You're no longer apologizing for evolving. And that's when something incredible happens. Clarity replaces confusion. Focus replaces overthinking. Momentum replaces hesitation. But elevation is not a one-time decision. It's a daily release. And if you're still watching, you already feel it, that internal shift happening as you recognize yourself in these patterns. Here's the breakthrough most people miss. Raising your vibration is not about becoming someone else. It's about removing what you've outgrown. You don't need to add more information. You need to drop what's heavy. The need for validation, the addiction to drama, the outdated identity, comfort disguised as care, the fear of outgrowing people. When you release these, your natural clarity surfaces, your intuition sharpens, your confidence strengthens, your decisions become cleaner, and your life begins reflecting the frequency you embody. This is not about perfection, it's about awareness. And awareness is power. So here's your next step. Choose one of these patterns and consciously release it this week. Not forever, just this week. Observe what changes. Observe how your energy feels. Observe how people respond differently when your presence is grounded. Because once you experience that shift even once, you won't want to go back. You're not behind. You're not lost. You're shedding. And the version of you that exists without these weights, that version is already waiting. Now it's your move.